if you're a white person in South Africa, you already understand the status quo. You understand that the ANC is going to forge ahead with whatever asinine policies they have. And when those policies fail, well, you understand. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Recently, something has started to really bother me. So, AfriForum and Solidarity goes around the country, or actually around the world, and they're desperately screaming for someone to hear about what is actually happening in this country. AfriForum and Solidarity never actually uses the words genocide, and yet the media, the professional propaganda outlets of South Africa, immediately tie AfriForum and Solidarity to the claim of white genocide. Donald Trump is the one that uses white genocide, but he already starts talking about that back in 2018. And then these kind of posts started to pop up all across South Africa on social media. You would have these people like Julius Malema, who said openly that they will deal with AfriForum and Solidarity. Now people are saying, let's get to it. It's time for the fireworks. We're sick and tired of their deception. Or you have people like this who beg and scream for AfriForum and Solidarity to actually be classed as terrorist organizations. And why exactly are they asking for AfriForum and Solidarity to be classed as terrorist organizations? Well, because according to them, AfriForum and Solidarity are perpetuating lies. AfriForum and Solidarity are telling the world that South Africa is the most race-regulated country in the world. The communists and the leftists, of course, will pretend that that is simply not true. When they speak about race laws and they speak about the things happening in South Africa, they make it seem as if you're completely out of your mind for even suggesting that South Africa has such a thing as race laws. Never mind the fact that you have affirmative action, employment equity, and BEE. All three of these are specifically race laws meant to discriminate against a specific group within the country with impunity. And yet we are consistently, time and time again, told that this is not a race law. It's merely redress. And then, of course, when you ask them, well, how long will you be redressing for exactly? You get stuff like this. We are going to have redress for 400 years or more. We shouldn't even talk about the absolute asinine understanding of history, or at least we should say the ANC education is starting to show in their ability to calculate what happened for at least the first 350 years of South Africa's existence, or the fact that there was no black people to oppress because they were not nations, they were not peoples, and there were no Afrikaans nations either. Most people in South Africa were merely traveling around looking for a place to stay, looking for a place to settle. Or you'll have things like this. At least now the black people in South Africa are starting to admit that all of these laws, all of the racial laws in South Africa are avengements, right? It is retaliation and punishment for what they deem to be the oppression of the past. They will claim things like apartheid was a genocide, even though the majority of black people that died under apartheid was killed by the ANC, not by the white people. The ANC were necklacing black people for not going along with the lies. But then there's the big one. They do mind that AfriForum and Solidarity is saying to the world, look at all these race laws, but the one they hate most is the genocidal claims. Now, AfriForum and Solidarity never actually made a genocide claim. This was Donald Trump, and more recently, a lot of other people that started to look at the actual statistics. Now, some of you might be watching this and saying, but come on, Stefan, there really is no genocide. Let's just be real about this. And to that, I would say, here's statistics for you. You can argue a lot about how you feel, right? You might be living in a city, you might be living in a security village, and your city, the areas that you visit and frequent are perfectly safe. You've never been threatened. You've never had your life in danger. And so you think, or at least feel, that, hey, it isn't quite that bad here in South Africa. And I think a lot of these people are lying. That's why statistics really matter. It gives us a statistically significant number that we can then use in order to determine whether or not there is an actual problem. So if you look at the population of South Africa in round about the mid-2016s, and this isn't even the most recent numbers, there is another one from AfriForum, but it doesn't have this neat little table to really highlight it. It's more spread out, so I decided to just use this. This is from 2016, but the numbers have not shifted much in that time. The only thing that's really happened is Afrikaans farmers have gotten a lot better at protecting themselves, and so the murder rate has gone down. The attack rate is still very, very high. But okay, so in 2016, You had out of 100,000 population. This is all people in South Africa. The murder rate was 34 out of 100,000. That's a lot of people, just FYI. That's a very high murder rate. But then when we look at actual farming communities, so we look at the murder rate in the rural communities, people living on farms, that is 52.8, nearly double. Then when we look just at the farmers, so the white families that live on these farms, that murder rate jumps up to 108 out of 100,000. That is an insane number. That makes being a white farmer in South Africa one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. This is a problem. What becomes even more of a problem is that the ANC is spending all of its resources trying to deny and deflect from this number than actually just trying to combat the number. If you had a problem with this, if you were genuinely serious about stopping the murders of farmers, you would have done something about it. These murders cannot be fought by ordinary police units and ordinary police officers. You need specially trained units with special equipment in order to deal with it, due to the nature of farms and how farms operate and the landmass that they're in. There's a whole host of things that you would have to do if you're actually serious about it. But I would wager that there's a reason why the ANC isn't tough on gang areas in this country, and also not tough on crime for farmers. Because someone in the ANC benefits from the murder of white farmers. Someone in the ANC benefits a lot from the gang areas in this country not being policed in the way that they require. And this, of course, is the exact reason why AfriForum and Solidarity are called traitors to this country, and why there's so many calls for them to be classified as a terrorist organization, because all they're doing is telling the world the truth. Now, more recently, there has been a new claim that's been made about Afrikaners, and that is that we simply hate South Africa. So let's examine that claim. First and foremost, it is absolutely not true that we hate South Africa. We love South Africa. We are willing to fight and die for South Africa. What we hate is communists and the ANC. And we hate you because your ideology continues to destroy this country. But I want, if you're still watching it by now, if there's any left-wing leftists, communists, or black people watching at this point, I want you to very quickly use that empathy that you so often tout and put yourselves in my shoes. I spent my whole life living under ANC rule. My entire adult life was lived under ANC rule. I remember when the ANC proposed affirmative action. I remember when economists were warning the ANC that this doesn't work. You see, in the theoretical realm where one might try affirmative action, it never actually works in practice, but theoretically when one tries it, it works only when you're trying to uplift a minority at the expense of the majority. It doesn't work the other way around because, well, there's 2.1 million white people in South Africa. There's about 27 million black people in South Africa that either do not work or have jobs that pay so little that they require government assistance. So even if you replaced all 2.1 million with black people, you'd still have 25 million black people that do not have a job, or at least don't earn enough to actually survive on their own. So affirmative action doesn't really work when you're trying to uplift the majority at the expense of the minority. The other problem that affirmative action has is it only really works theoretically if you can get economic growth to be high enough that it creates enough jobs so that everyone sort of gets jobs, and you're not just pushing one person into unemployment by taking another person out of. So you're not just replacing people in unemployment and employment situations, but actually creating enough jobs that everyone gets employed. The problem with affirmative action is it actually destroys economic growth. So you end up creating less jobs, and therefore you do end up just doing a one-for-one exchange one way or the other. More importantly, I was there when The Economist warned the South African government, the ANC, that this wasn't going to work. I was there when the ANC proposed BEE, and again, economists told the ANC this isn't going to work. I was there when Eskom warned the ANC that you need to start building power stations, or else we will run out of electricity if you continue to connect more and more black families to the grid and not build more capacity. I was there when people were warning the ANC that South Africa is going to run into a water crisis if they do not act now. I was there when the ANC employed employment equity as a new form of redress. I was there every single time when the ANC was warned. I was there every single time when the ANC ignored the warnings. And in 2008, when load shedding started, what was the first thing that the South African National or the African National Congress blamed? White people and apartheid. When South Africa finally started running out of water, what was the first thing that the ANC blamed? White people and apartheid. When the economy started to falter due to BEE's implementation, what was the first thing that the ANC blamed? White people. When employment equity started to have its dangerous effect on the economy, what was the first thing that the African National Congress blamed? White people and apartheid. When expropriation without compensation became a reality that was being pushed in South Africa, we were warning. We said to the ANC, you're going down a very dangerous road that is going to destroy the economic outlook of this country. And the ANC again said, racist whites, we don't want to hear anything about you. And when this ultimately fails and ends up destroying the country, the ANC will once again go to their favorite little pinata, beating the dead horse that is that is apartheid, and of course the white Afrikaner community. I was there for all of it. And here's the frustration. I did not vote for the ANC. Me and my people have no power politically in this country. We could vote against the ANC 100% of the time and still lose 100% of the time. We do not have the power politically, nor the power economically, to actually affect change in this country. And yet, every single time, we are the ones blamed for every single failure of the ANC. And you are telling me that I just hate this country? I put it to you, former Clever Black, that you're the one who hates this country, because you're the one who continues to vote for the ANC in spite of their abysmal record. I do not hate South Africa. I hate communists and I hate the ANC. And this is the truth and the reality for every single white South African in this country that actually cares about good and decent governance. Good, decent people that care about freedom, that care about uplifting the poor and actually fixing this country. We don't want to see poor black families. We don't want to see black people not be able to afford living. We want to see everyone prosper, but we know for a fact the ANC is not the party that will be able to do that. And so, yes, we celebrate their failures. Why do we celebrate their failures? Because, at least for us, those who do not want to hear must feel. If that means that we all must suffer a little so that you guys can finally feel the effects of what you're voting for and recognize that you have been stupid in your application of the greatest privilege that any person can ever have, the ability to vote for their leader, well, then that's a small price to pay if it means the future of South Africa is secure with people who understand that communism does not work. No country anywhere in the world has ever taxed itself into prosperity. As always, ladies and gentlemen, that is just my opinion. Let me know in the comment section down below what your opinion is. Massive shout out and thank you to all of the patrons as well as the YouTube channel members for continuing to support the channel. Patrons, link in the description down below. Or to become a YouTube member, just hit the join button right below this video. As always, if you like what I do and you want more people to have access to the content that I make, consider hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and sharing this video around with as many people as possible. I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.